Hook. The image NASA didn't want us to see. NASA just released an image it never planned for us to see. An object drifting near Jupiter, behaving like no comet in history. No tail, no water, only a massive red cloud of gas expanding like a warning. And the question is, if it isn't a comet, then what is it? August 2025, NASA begins one of the most ambitious surveys of the sky with its brand new infrared telescope, SPHEREX. The mission is designed to map the universe in wavelengths invisible to our eyes, revealing everything from the birth of stars to the chemistry of distant galaxies. But in the middle of this massive sweep of the heavens, the telescope finds something far closer and far stranger than anyone expected. At a distance of 2.2 astronomical units from the Sun, roughly the orbit of Jupiter, SPHEREX locks onto an object unlike any it has seen before. It is small, faint, and drifting silently through space. The catalog marks it as 3I Atlas. That name alone is historic. 3I means this is the third interstellar object ever discovered by humanity. Before it, we only knew of 2. Oumuamua spotted in 2017 and Borisov in 2019. Those discoveries shocked the world because they proved for the first time that visitors from other star systems regularly pass through our solar system. And now Atlas has joined their ranks. At first, astronomers expected it to behave like Borisov, a typical comet, only one that happened to wander into our neighborhood from deep space. After all, comets are predictable. They orbit the Sun. Their icy surfaces begin to warm. Water ice sublimates, turns directly into vapor, and a glowing tail of gas and dust streams behind them, painting the blackness of space with light. This is the script comets have always followed. But from the very first observations, it was clear Atlas was not the discovery with SP8X reading from the same script. Instead of a water-rich coma, SPHEREX detected something completely different. Atlas was venting only carbon dioxide, no visible jets of water, no sparkling trail of dust, only a smooth expanding shell of CO2 surrounding the object. For context, at this distance from the Sunday the 2nd of February astronomical units, water usually dominates cometary activity. Carbon dioxide is present, yes, but in small amounts, often hidden beneath the overwhelming production of water vapor. Yet, here was an object where the balance was inverted. Water was nearly silent, and CO2 was the only voice. And not just a little CO2, Atlas was releasing it in enormous amounts, unlike anything seen at this distance. That is when astronomers realized this was not going to be a simple repeat of Borisov. This was something new, something unsettling, an interstellar visitor that behaves nothing like the comets we know. And that one fact, the absence of water, the dominance of carbon dioxide, turned Atlas from a minor discovery into one of the most puzzling mysteries NASA has ever recorded. When astronomers first studied 3I Atlas, their eyes weren't drawn to the nucleus, the solid body at its heart, but to the halo of gas surrounding it. What they saw was breathtaking. Atlas was wrapped in a coma nearly 348,000 kilometers across. To put that into perspective, that's almost a distance from Earth to the Moon. Imagine a single object surrounded by a bubble so vast it could swallow our entire planet multiple times over. And unlike the pale, translucent comas we've seen around ordinary comets, this one glowed with a deep blood red hue, a halo unlike anything in the catalogs. At first, researchers assumed this was just an amplified version of normal comet behavior. After all, comets produce comas when the sun warms their frozen surfaces. But when the spectral data came back, everything changed. This coma wasn't made of water vapor and dust, the basic ingredients of every cometail we've ever observed. Instead, it was composed almost entirely of carbon dioxide. That alone is astonishing. At 2.22 astronomical units from the Sun, comets are typically dominated by water sublimation. The ice boils directly into gas. Jets burst through the crust, and the outward push of sunlight stretches that gas and dust into the familiar tails we see crossing the sky. Carbon dioxide is usually a minor player at this distance, buried beneath layers of ice, releasing faint quantities compared to water. But Atlas turns that logic upside down. The data was clear. This object was venting CO2 at a staggering 70 kilograms every second. Imagine the mass of a human body throwing Atlas versus Oumuamua and Borisov into space every single second, carried away in a silent, invisible stream. And yet, no water vapor, no strong dust trail, just CO2. Why? One theory suggests that carbon dioxide, being more volatile in water, is escaping first and acting like a thermal blanket, cooling the surface and preventing the water ice beneath from reaching the critical temperature to sublimate. Another explanation is that the water lies far deeper under the surface, trapped beneath layers of dust and frozen compounds that sunlight simply can't penetrate. But both theories fall short when you look at the coma structure, because here is the most unsettling part. The coma is too symmetrical. Comas are usually chaotic. They twist, expand unevenly, and reveal the violence of gas jetting into space. But Atlas's coma looks different. Smooth, uniform, almost perfectly spherical. It doesn't look like random venting. It looks organized. Astronomers compared it to comets from the Kuiper Belt and even the distant Oort cloud, icy bodies that occasionally produce more CO2 than water. But even those comets don't create a sphere this large, this uniform, and this strangely consistent. One astrophysicist described it as eerily calm, a structure that doesn't match the explosive, unpredictable nature of sublimation. It's as if Atlas is maintaining the coma rather than simply producing it. And that's where the mystery deepens. Because if this coma were entirely natural, we would expect turbulence. We would expect chaotic jets. We would expect signs of water ice finally breaking free as the sun's heat grows stronger. But instead, all we see is a constant exhalation of carbon dioxide. So, what exactly is happening here? Is this truly a frozen relic from another star system, behaving in ways our models can't yet explain? Or is this coma hiding something beneath its veil, something more structured, the red coma that breaks the rules more deliberate than nature alone could create? What we do know is this. A coma of this size and symmetry simply doesn't fit within the physics of what we understand comets to be. And if the coma challenges our models, what we discover about the core will shake them even more. If the coma of Atlas already challenged our expectations, what scientists found next completely shattered them. Because hidden inside that enormous red shell of gas is a core, the nucleus of the object, and it does not behave like any cometary core we've ever studied. Let's start with the early numbers. When the Hubble Space Telescope first observed 3I Atlas, it estimated a tiny nucleus somewhere between 300 and 500 m across. That's small, comparable to the interstellar comet Borisov, and consistent with what we'd expect from an icy fragment wandering through space. But when SphereX began collecting near-infrared spectra, the readings didn't add up. Instead of a faint, unremarkable body, the telescope detected a huge flux of reflected light at the 1-micron wavelength. The intensity was so strong, so abnormal that the models had to be run multiple times. Every time they pointed to the same shocking conclusion. The nucleus of 3I Atlas might not be half a kilometer wide, but closer to 46 kilometers across. 46. That number stunned researchers because a nucleus of that size would make Atlas larger than 90% of the comets we've ever recorded. To put it in perspective, that would be over 1 million times more massive than Borisov. If true, it means Atlas isn't just an interstellar traveler. It's a colossus, a mountain of ice and rock so massive that we should have noticed it much earlier. And that's where the contradictions start. If Atlas really is 46 kilometers across, its gravitational influence alone should have been detectable. It should have bent the light of background stars as it drifted in. Its coma filled with gas and possibly dust should have glowed so brightly that telescopes would have flagged it long before SphereX came online. Yet none of that happened. For months, Atlas remained invisible, silent, hidden, until suddenly it wasn't. So maybe the nucleus isn't that massive after all. A second theory emerged. Perhaps almost all of the light SphereX detected doesn't come from the core itself, but from microscopic particles suspended in the coma. These particles could reflect sunlight in ways that exaggerate the size of the nucleus. It sounds like a reasonable fix. But then another problem appears because when astronomers studied the pattern of that reflected light, the reflectivity curve, they found something unexpected instead of the jagged, uneven profile of dust scattering sunlight in random the core that shattered expectations' directions. The curve looked smooth, too smooth, almost symmetrical. This kind of reflectivity doesn't match a chaotic swarm of particles. It suggests something more uniform, more controlled, more regular, as if the surface of whatever is reflecting that light is far less random than a natural comet's nucleus should be. Think about that. Either Atlas is a nucleus so massive it should have revealed itself years ago, or the brightness we see is an illusion created by a coma with unnaturally symmetrical reflectivity. Neither option makes sense. Cometary nuclei are supposed to be rough, irregular, scarred by impacts and shredded by their own outgassing. Their comas should be messy, filled with jets blasting unpredictably into space. Yet, Atlas looks almost restrained, and this is why scientists are divided. Is the nucleus truly a frozen giant hiding in plain sight? Or is the core smaller but shrouded by a coma whose symmetry feels less like chaos and more like design? Because if Atlas's coma is structured and its brightness is artificially uniform, then we're not just looking at a comet anymore. We're looking at something that has been arranged or at the very least shaped by processes we do not yet understand. The idea unsettles researchers because it leaves us in a place science rarely likes to be. Suspended between two impossible explanations, a core too big to hide or a reflection too perfect to be natural. So which is it? That's the riddle of Atlas's heart. And solving it might be the key to understanding whether this is a comet at all or something entirely different. If Atlas's coma was already strange and its nucleus bordering on impossible, what came next made astronomers question the very foundation of comet science. Because there is one element every comet should reveal as it nears the sun. An element so essential, so defining that without it, the very word comet loses its meaning. That element is water. Comets are often described as dirty snowballs, mixtures of rock, dust, and frozen ices, with water being the dominant component. As a comet approaches the sun, that water should heat up, sublimate into vapor, and drive spectacular jets that push dust and gas into space. It is water that creates the bright comas and iconic tails we see in the night sky. But in the case of 3I Atlas, water is strangely absent. Spectral data confirms that water ice is indeed present inside Atlas. It's there mixed with carbon dioxide and organic compounds frozen like a memory from another star system. And yet, despite being so close to the sun at 2.2 astronomical units, very little of it is escaping. For context, a comet at this distance should typically release 40 to 50 kilograms of water vapor every second. That's enough to form obvious jets and a shining tail visible to telescopes on Earth. But Atlas is producing just 4.5 kilograms per second, barely a trickle, less than 1/10th of the expected.